If you think about it, what's happened since 1900 is pretty mind-blowing. We've basically compressed centuries of environmental change into the span of a single human lifetime. In this explainer, we're going to dig into the key forces that have totally reshaped the land, the air, and the water of our planet. So, the big question is, how? How on earth did we, as a species, manage to alter the entire globe on such a massive scale? And in what is, geologically speaking, just the blink of an eye? Well, the answer really boils down to three powerful, interconnected forces. You could think of them like massive gears all turning together. We had a huge explosion in industry, an absolutely unprecedented boom in human population, and completely new ways of consuming things all over the world. These three drivers were the engine of change for the whole century. So let's start from the ground up, literally. The most visible and immediate impacts have been on the land itself. And two key processes have really defined the last 100 years or so: deforestation and desertification. Now look, humans have been clearing forests for wood and farmland forever. That's nothing new, but what changed after 1900 was the sheer scale of it and the new reasons we were doing it. It just amplified the whole practice beyond anything we'd ever seen before. So what were these new drivers? Well, for one, cities started growing like crazy, along with all the roads and infrastructure to support them. Then you have suburban sprawl, the classic white picket fence, which was supercharged by the automobile, turning forests into neighborhoods. But honestly, the biggest driver by far has been massive commercial farming. And this isn't just local stuff. We're talking about global demand for products like soy for animal feed, which can clear huge areas of land thousands of miles from where the product is actually used. And this slide just perfectly lays out the domino effect. See, clearing a forest doesn't just get rid of trees, it completely wipes out habitats, which leads to a huge loss of biodiversity. Then, without the tree roots holding everything together, the soil just erodes and washes away. And to top it off, the intensive farming that often follows pollutes our vital freshwater with fertilizer and pesticide runoff. It's a chain reaction. The other major pressure on our land is something called desertification. This is basically the process where land that was once fertile and productive just degrades into a barren desert, unable to support the life it once did. So what's causing this? Well, it's often a direct result of trying to farm in ways that just aren't sustainable. It happens when we try to grow crops on land that isn't really suitable for it, or when we push good land way too hard, planting crop after crop without putting nutrients back. It's like we're just exhausting the soil, taking everything out, until eventually there's nothing left and nothing can grow. Of course, the impacts aren't just on the ground we walk on. Let's look up for a second and see how that same industrial and agricultural boom has affected the very air we breathe and the water we drink. Yeah, when it comes to declining air quality, one culprit really stands out above all the rest: our global industrial economy's deep, deep reliance on burning fossil fuels, coal, oil for energy. And the consequences of that can be immediate and absolutely deadly. Just take a look at London's Great Smog of 1952. For 5 days, this thick blanket of industrial coal smoke and fog just smothered the city. It led to an estimated 12,000 deaths. A truly horrifying real-world example of the immediate cost of severe air pollution. Unless you think this is just some black and white historical problem, let's fast forward to 2002. In Mexico City, government estimates linked the polluted air to roughly 35,000 deaths per year. It's a sobering reminder that poor air quality is still a critical global health crisis right now. Okay, now let's talk water. It's so easy to forget, living on a planet covered by oceans, just how incredibly scarce our most vital resource really is. I mean, look at this. 97% of all water on Earth is saltwater. Only a tiny 3% is fresh, and most of that is locked up as ice and glaciers. That incredibly small sliver is what all of us and all of terrestrial life depends on. And we are putting an immense strain on that tiny fraction of fresh water. The consequence is a crisis of access. Today, roughly half of the world's entire population lacks access to safely managed drinking water. Let that sink in for a second. Billions of people struggling for something that many of us get just by turning a tap. All right, this brings us to what is maybe the most complex and contentious environmental issue of them all: climate change. While it's pretty clear the planet is warming up, the public and political debate has zeroed in on one huge question: what or who is the primary cause? The public debate really boils down to two main arguments. On one side, you have the overwhelming scientific consensus, which points to human activities, mostly burning fossil fuels, as the main driver. On the other side, you have the counterargument, which you often hear in political and economic circles, suggesting that the warming we see is caused mainly by long-term natural cycles of the Earth. So why is this debate so intense, so politically charged? Well, because the answer has massive, massive implications. If human industry is the main cause, then the solutions might mean slowing down some of that industrial activity, which could impact economic growth. And this creates a really tough tension between developed nations who got to industrialize early and have higher historical emissions, and developing nations who argue they need to industrialize now to improve their quality of life. It just becomes a deeply complex question of global fairness and responsibility. So, after looking at these huge changes to our land, our air, and our water, where does that leave us? Let's take a step back and reflect on the one core theme that really connects all of these issues. If you take just one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. From our farms and factories to how and where we live, human activity has been the central, most powerful force driving environmental change over the last century. Full stop. And this history leaves us staring at the defining challenge of our time. Knowing the immense power we now have to reshape an entire planet, the crucial question for all of us is this: how do we build a future that is both environmentally sustainable and truly equitable for everyone on Earth? That's the conversation we all need to be having.